In this video, using real numbers and real comparisons of old data, I'm going to be talking about the cost of motorcycles in 2026. Now let's start with a simple bit of scene setting and some context and history around a selection of bike models. We'll start off by looking at the Yamaha MT-07. Now, if you spent any time in the UK motorcycling industry and culture, you'll know about this bike. It is, by all accounts, to me anyway, the benchmark middleweight bike. It comes up time and time again where people ask about what first bike should I choose. This is a bike that is heralded as one of the most learner-friendly, beginner-friendly, but fun motorcycles that money can buy. In 2018, you could buy one of these new for £6,300. But if you fast forward to now, and that same bike is going to cost you £8,000 from the dealership. That's a little over a 21% increase. Now, I know exactly what every single one of you is thinking, because I would be thinking exactly the same at this point in the video. Everything's gone up, mate. That's just inflation. And you're right, the prices in generally have risen across the board for literally everything. General CPI inflation over that same period of time is roughly between 25 to 30% less. So on paper, the Yamaha MT-07 has actually tracked below inflation. And they'll tell you that themselves. If you challenge them on it, that's exactly what they'll say to you. But that argument only works if the bike has meaningfully improved. And that's the question that manufacturers don't want you to sit with for too long, because the MT-07 is still fundamentally the same bike that it was in 2018. The same engine layout, the same basic characteristics. It's had updates, don't get me wrong. It has better electronics now, revised styling. It looks a bit more aggressive. It has a better dash, or new dash, should I say. Better is a personal thing between the rider and the bike, but none of that new tech is state-of-the-art technology. It's not bleeding edge gear going into the bikes like the MT-07. It is still built to a price using previous generations tech. So with that in mind, is it really £1,700 better of an offering than it used to be? And that, unfortunately, is only a question that can be answered by the owners themselves. So let's take a quick look at the premium end of the spectrum. So we'll start by taking a look at BMW's R1250 GS. This was the best-selling adventure bike in the world for absolutely years. In 2019, it had a starting price of £13,400. Its replacement, now, today, is the R1300 GS, and that starts at £15,990. That is a near increase of £2,600. And yes, with that example, it is genuinely a new bike. It's got a new engine, new chassis, and far more technology. BMW will argue to you, when you kind of question the price increase, you are getting more for your money. And in some ways, they're right. But the real story here is that adventure bike registrations in the UK are down roughly 30% in 2025. The most popular category of British motorcycles for years has all but collapsed. At the same time, smaller, cheaper, more accessible bikes like the 125s through to 500cc bikes are up some 20% on registrations. So are riders being priced away from the bikes that they actually want? And are they choosing something they can actually afford in an attempt to stay on two wheels and keep enjoying riding? Now, I think it's important to say at this point that I don't think this is entirely manufacturers' faults. There's a whole bunch of hidden costs driving the prices that people don't really think about or talk about. For example, emissions regulations. Every few years, the EU stipulate changes and the UK follows suit with those changes, tightening the emissions rules. We've had Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, and even Euro 5 Plus, and Euro 6 is on the horizon. Each round demands expensive engineering changes for better fuel management, tighter emissions controls, quieter exhausts, more sophisticated electronics, just to meet these new limits. And every time that happens, the cost of compliance and all that engineering and R&D that goes into complying with those new rules and regulations, it gets put onto the end ticket price of the bike. The move from Euro 4 to Euro 5 alone forced manufacturers to redesign entire engines, rework exhaust systems, and in some cases, it even killed off entire models that just couldn't be made compliant at a viable cost. And then Euro 5 Plus arrived, in 2025, and this had a huge impact on new bike registrations. In 2025, the MCIA reported that there was a 19.3 registration collapse in new bike registrations, but that wasn't entirely a demand problem. A lot of that is actually regulation cliff edge causing that kind of spike in 2024 of registrations. Dealers rushed to register non-Euro 5 Plus stock before the end of 2024. And that artificial inflation of pre-reg bikes in 2024 numbers resulted in the 2025 numbers looking absolutely catastrophic. And buried in that story is the real cost of the compliance spiral, because every Euro upgrade cycle pushes prices up. It kills off affordable models that can't be updated cheaply enough and pushes the engineering bill directly onto us as the consumer. Nobody asked for any of these compliance changes to happen, not even the manufacturers or the dealers, but everyone buying a new bike is paying for it. Now, I know that comparing one bike's price to what it used to cost 6 or 7 years ago doesn't actually show you guys how the cost burden on a real rider has shifted. It's just a simple way of demonstrating that things are more expensive today than they used to be. For me to show you what the real impact has been, you need to look at the bigger picture. So let me give you a realistic scenario. You've gone out and you've paid your money and you've passed your theory test. You've gone on and done your CBT, that's another couple of £100 there. And you want to go on and get your full license and buy that proper first motorcycle, something like this, something that you're going to open the garage door to and go proud of yourself and how exciting this is to go out and ride. Well, the first hurdle is going to be the full license itself. That process alone with the CBT in theory, module 1 and module 2, is going to cost you around £1,000, sometimes up to £1,500 depending on location. And that's before you've even bought a single piece of safety kit. I've done a video on my channel, which you can view at the pop-out banner at the top, which dives further into the full cost of a license and shows you where all that money goes. You can go and check it out, like I say, by clicking the pop-out banner. And then there's the cost of your first bike on top of that. Let's say you go and buy that MT-07 that we've talked about. Today, that's going to set you back somewhere in the region of £7,700 for a new one. And then you've got your first year's insurance for a new rider. Even as an adult, new riders, realistically, let's kind of keep things conservative. You're looking at about £600 to £800. I've done a video on the cost of insurance. Pop up banner at the top of the screen. You can check that out if you want to. And then on top of that, you've got your basic gear. Even if you try to keep things down and cheap on that, and you've got yourself the basics of a helmet, jacket, boots, and trousers, spending carefully, you're probably going to be spending about £500. Then you've got your first year servicing on that bike. Budget yourself another £200. When you start adding all that up, you're somewhere in the ballpark of between £10,000 to £11,000 before you've even ridden 1 mile with a full license in the UK. And that's not pocket change for anyone, really. Now let's talk about wages. The industry often defends price rises by pointing out wage growth versus inflation. And it's true. The nominal salary here in the UK has risen. The UK median full-time salary was around £30,300 and something pounds. I put the full figure on the screen from 2019. And by 2020, it has risen to 39,000 something. And that's nearly a 29% increase on paper. But here's what those numbers are hiding. According to the House of Commons Library, after you take those wage increases and you adjust them for inflation, real wages are still significantly lower to where they were in around 2008. That's actual buying power we're talking about. So nearly 2 decades of nominal growth that in actual purchasing power performance has gone absolutely nowhere. So when the industry says prices have tracked inflation, what they're not saying is that inflation has almost entirely eroded most of the wage growth that riders have seen in their salaries. It's not that the single cost is impossible, it's that every single cost I've just talked about, all coming at the same time, on wages that have barely moved in real time, is a real different conversation. Now I know that all of you lot will have something to say on all of this, so I wanted to ask, has the ticket price, the cost of a new bike, ever genuinely stopped you from buying one? If it has, what did you do instead? Did you just not buy a bike, or did you buy a used one? Drop it in the comments below and I'll get back to every single one of you like I usually do. I try and reply to every comment as best as I can. And if I don't reply, at least I'll read them. But I know full well what's going to happen here, and you guys are going to be telling a lot of the stories which are very similar to mine in this situation. And I know that because most of us have already figured this one out. We aren't waiting for the manufacturers to fix this or give us some huge discounts when we walk in and we ask for some deals on our PCP plans, because ultimately the latest bikes prices are the latest bike prices. And we're making a rational decision with our wallets when it comes to the bikes that we're choosing. And the data shows that clearly. Used motorcycle sales at the moment are stronger than ever. And this comes at exactly the same time when new registrations for bikes are crumbling. They're collapsing. Dealerships are shutting all over the country. And that's not a coincidence, because every rider who looks at a £15,990 BMW GS, but then decides to go online and find a well-maintained 2021 model, the R1250 GS, for £10,000 instead, has made a perfectly logical decision. Every rider who looks at the new MT-07 at £7,700 and finds a clean 2019 model that's been well looked after with only 1,000 or 2,000 miles on it for £4,500 on Facebook Marketplace is making the same perfectly logical decision. And every new rider who looks at the total cost of entry and decides to use a 400cc or a second-hand A2 bike when starting out, instead of going out and buying a brand new A2 compliant machine that they've seen in the dealerships, has made a perfectly rational and logical decision. The industry keeps building premium new motorcycles, and they've built this premium motorcycle market. And then they're sat there watching as the audience that they need to keep themselves in business is making smarter decisions and finding a smarter way around it. Every time we buy a used bike, we're not handing money back to the manufacturers. Not a penny is going back into their pockets. Which brings me back to the Monster. When I started seriously looking to upgrade from my old 125 and actually sat down with the numbers, the new bike market made the used market look obvious. I managed to get a 2018 Ducati Monster 821. It's an Italian V-twin with bags of character, more character per pound than almost anything you can buy from the new market, in my opinion. And the price suddenly started to make sense. Is it without compromise? Absolutely not, no. Servicing costs are more than anything from the Japanese middleweight sector currently available. It's also not a brand new bike, so didn't come with a full warranty. So I do have this niggling thought in the back of my mind that if anything goes wrong with it, that's on me. But here's what I got for my money. Just look at it. It's incredible, isn't it? I love this bike. It's a bike that's got genuine personality. It's got a riding experience that doesn't feel sanitized or over electrical or just copy paste parallel twin, all for the price that, well, compared to the new market and compared to the new sector, made complete and utter sense. It was the most rational purchase that I think I could have made at the time. And I'll say this clearly, I'm not special in figuring this out. Thousands of us UK riders are making the same calculated decisions every single year. And that's why the used market data is proving that. It is booming. The industry knows it too. And instead of responding by making new bikes more accessible, the trajectory has mainly continued in the same opposite direction. Now, whether your bike costs £4,000 or £16,000 new, there's one thing that doesn't change. And that is unfortunately the risk of it being stolen and attacked by thieves. Actually, in some cases, a well-chosen used bike is actually more attractive as a target to these thieves because, well, they're experienced and they know exactly what that bike's going to be worth if they were to take it. That's why I choose to use the Lightlock X1 as my main security option. If you haven't seen my full video on this, then I do suggest you click the pop-up banner at the top of the screen right now, where I can go into a lot of detail exactly what makes this lock so special. But the abridged short version is this. Most locks are designed to just be a visual deterrent, but can be defeated with some very basic, simple power tools. Whereas the Lightlock X1 is an actual stopper designed specifically to prevent theft. It uses a specially made baronium core, which is marketed as an angle grinder resistant material in ways that most locks simply aren't. It'll destroy grinder discs before they can make a clean cut all the way through it. And even if they did successfully get all the way through it by using multiple discs, well, thanks to its anti-twist shackle, it means they'll have to make a second cut all the way through it just to stand any chance of getting this lock off of your bike. I own one, I use it all the time, and I trust my bike's safety with it genuinely. I couldn't ask for a better lock, and I know for a fact that if my bike were to be stolen, I couldn't easily replace it right now. That is why I put my faith in Lightlock. There is an affiliate link in the description below where you can go and check them out. You can buy one direct from the guys at Lightlock. You will not pay a penny more by buying through that link, but you will be giving me a little bit of commission kickback, which supports me to keep creating these free to view videos for you guys. Now, as always, I don't want this to be a video where I just sit here ranting and bellyaching about the price of new motorcycles and offering you guys nothing to go and research and look at yourselves. Because, well, the answer does exist. Some manufacturers are already out there and they've found the solutions, and they are directly booking the trend, offering us buyers some great options that are genuinely good value for money. Take Triumph, for example, with the Trident 660. Go check that bike out, as well as their actual new one, the Trident 800. Go on from this video, research those bikes, find a little bit more about them, and I think you'll be genuinely impressed with the price point those bikes are coming in at and what they've developed, because these are really exciting three-cylinder motorcycles at a price point that actually makes a lot of sense. At a touch over £8,000 new, you can get yourself a Trident 660. This cost me £7,000, and it's a used bike. Whereas a Trident 660, whilst it is significantly lower on power and a little bit more friendly and accessible, I think it's a bargain. And they're suggesting that the Trident 800, which is much more closely aligned to this bike, will set you back somewhere in the region of £9,000 when it's released, which is fantastic. These are bikes that have sold and will sell. I suspect the 800 will sell very well when it hits showroom floors. Then there's KTM with the Duke range. This is another excellent example of manufacturers looking at a line of bikes and offering riders something a little bit different. They've got real character, real performance, and rider experiences at a price point that doesn't make you think twice about buying it. And they've even got bikes at a lower CC range, the 390s, which are loads and loads and loads of fun and genuinely accessible. And Royal Enfield is another one that's making waves in the accessible bike market. Meteor 350 and the Himalayan. Bikes that look great, ride fantastically, and cost what normal people can actually afford for a bike. And what do all these bikes have in common? They're prioritizing being accessible over being out and out impressive. They understand that riders who can actually afford to buy one of these bikes is going to be better for their bottom line and overall better for the motorcycling industry in the future versus having a pinnacle bike which is just a spec sheet winner, wins awards at EICMA, and then eventually just sits in a showroom with no one buying it. The market for genuinely great, genuinely accessible motorcycles does exist, and there's a few manufacturers who have found it and know about it and are capitalizing on that. Whereas the ones that haven't yet capitalized on it, they're sat there watching their registrations fall as they keep chasing specs in the spec sheet arms race. So what actually needs to change then? Because I want to be fair here. The compliance spiral that I've talked about is real. Euro 5 Plus and Euro 6 is coming, it's on the horizon, along with actually the electrification mandate. That's all on the horizon for manufacturers. Manufacturers aren't inventing these costs, but regulation compliance with things like Euro 5 and that, and then feature loading are two very different things. Compliance is unavoidable. They have to work within those rules that they are being given. Whereas equipping every single new middleweight with 5 rider modes, a 6-axis IMU, and a TFT screen that now connects to my phone, well, that's a choice that they're making. And I've mentioned this quote before. The MCIA, Motorcycle Industries Association's own CEO, has said publicly that costs of new motorcycles are deterring new riders. And the UK motorcycle industry has a real identity problem in the way that it attracts young and new riders into the market. And riders are telling us the same thing with the way that they're going about their buying decisions. They'd rather have a simpler bike at a lower price point than something with all the bells and whistles. The used market is saying it as well. The small bike growth figures are saying the same thing. And you could even argue that the downturn, or I don't think I'll use the full word collapse, but the downturn in adventure motorcycle riders, the downturn in that segment of adventure bikes, is also saying the same thing. The costs are deterring new people from entering. The data to understand the problem is right there in the industry's own reports, time and time again. But acting on it is a completely different matter. The motorcycle has spent the last decade or so making motorcycles more and more impressive. And in doing so, it's made them less accessible. So much so that I went out and bought a used Ducati Monster because the new market basically made that decision the obvious choice. And I'm not alone in that. Now, if you've stuck around this far, then thank you very much for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed the content. And maybe you should consider watching last week's video, which you can see up here. Click on that, and it'll take you to a video where I went away and asked the question, why has the UK government made motorcycling so difficult? And do they even care about the industry enough to want to have it survive here in the UK? And if you are a new viewer to my channel, or a returning viewer that has not yet subscribed, then please do click on my little round face over here at the bottom of the screen to subscribe to the channel and don't miss a single video. Hopefully, I get to see you all next week. Ride safe, and again, thank you very much for watching.